Hi, this is Chris at Clever Unicorn Games and the Unicorn Collective, back with another interview. Today I have designer Chris Potts with me. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing well, man. It's good to see you. Good to be seen.
What is it that you like to do when you're not designing or playing games? What keeps your spare time busy?
Well, I am a LARPer. I like to dress up and, bludgeon my fellow friends with swords. I like to play airsoft. I like to play video games, I'm a big RPG guy, and of course I love board games. So I play lots and lots of board games as well.
LARPing is something that I've never done, but I do like the look of it. It seems like a big
I'm
time investment getting the costume ready and getting the soft weaponry and then finding someone to
yeah,
do it. I mean, we don't have anywhere that really does it over here, so I'd have to go to the UK to do it. But yeah, it does interest me. It does look interesting, especially if everybody takes it seriously. If everybody's taking it seriously, then I can get invested with that.
I was with two groups. I was with a group called Way of the Sword, and I was with a group called Dagger here. And it was full combat. So it was like me just coming up and hitting you in the arm with this foam sword, and you're like, "Oh, I lost my arm," and we'd shield bash each other. It was a lot of fun, but not as nerdy as like Agathor from like Role Models, but a lot of fun.
Oh, that's where I first saw it in Role Models. That was when I first saw LARPing properly. I think that's what sold me
Yeah.
on it. That looked like so much fun. That was such a great movie.
Oh, it's great. We'll have these camping events that are like 3 days long, and everybody just fights all day. And then at the end of the night, everybody's just drinking. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
What would
I
you
had
say
tons of fun.
your favorite board game is?
My favorite board game, I don't get to play it often, but I love 1942. I love the sheer amount of control you have in that and all the variation. Or, okay, maybe I'll make a submarine, or maybe I'll make a aircraft carrier, maybe I'll move some troops around. I love these types of war games where you can kind of do anything you want.
Is that Axis and Allies? Is that 1942? Is that Axis and
Yeah,
Allies? Yes. I've seen it. I've
yeah,
not played
Axis
it
and
yet,
Allies
but
1942.
yeah, everybody tells me it's brilliant and I should try it, so I need to get a copy of it. Yeah, I've always wanted to play it. There's two versions out there that I've seen. There's the 1942. I think there's a simpler one,
Mhm.
which is there's a big price difference between the two of them. But I think it's 1942 is the one that people should get, isn't it? That's the more complicated one with the most pieces.
Yeah, it's very cool because there's so many troop types, and it's just like you're given this economy, and it's you spend your economy on what you want. So you're like, I want tanks, or I want infantry, or I want aircraft carriers. From the aircraft carriers, you can move airplanes into enemy territory. It's just an amazing game, but you're going to be spending like 8 hours playing. Yeah, it's one of those. That's why I never get to pull it out much. Nobody wants to play an 8 hour war game. But definitely my favorite. I like Battlestar Galactica a lot, and lots of war games for me, you know. So,
What kind of games or what game inspired you to start creating games yourself?
uh, actually, Risk for me. Uh, I loved Risk, but I hated that it was like 6 hours long. And so I wanted to make a simple war game that could be played in like an hour or two. And I love pirates, so I wanted to make a pirate themed war game.
And when coming up with a game, where do you start first? So you have the idea, where do you go to next?
Well, for me, I I started making the board, so I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and then I'm like, okay, how can this function? And so I took a Caribbean map and I put it in paint, and then I was like, okay, these things are too close together, so I'm going to move these countries farther apart because it'll make the gameplay better. And so then I went in there and I'm like, well, I don't want this to be water. So I got a picture of old crinkled paper and I put that underneath of it. And then I layered these. And I'm like, well, I got to make I got to make these different colors. So I started painting each individual section, and then I dropped hexagons on it. I'm like, oh, cool, I got a board, And then from the board, I was like, how should this function? What is the goal of the game? And I was like, okay, well, the goal of the game is to get coins. I was like, all right, how will you get coins? And then I just started building off of my board. And then once I started doing that, I started forming a game around the board. And that's how I did it. I went through, like I was talking to you earlier, I went through 3 editions of this to get it where it is now. And it's been a cool ride. Everybody's been like, no, that doesn't work, or oh, this is a cool thing, and I'm taking notes and I'm writing everything down. It's been a lot of fun.
Have you ever played a game that you didn't like, and you don't have to mention the name of the game, but what was the theme or the mechanic, or what was it about the game that just put you off it?
I'm going to tell you exactly the game that I hate. I hate it. It's the worst for me. Is Agricola. I think it's the worst game ever.
Wow. Bold words.
Yeah, I know. And everybody's always like, what? You don't like Agricola? But, I love wargaming, so when I got into this game and it was like, oh, you're building a fence, and oh, here's a horse, and oh, there's some pigs over there. And I'm like, well, can I do anything to the other guy? Can I like break his fence or like burn his house down? Like, there's no player interaction. And I feel like you're just, building something yourself, and they're building their thing over here, and you just kind of see who wins. And maybe if I played it more and I understood it more, I might like it. But, for me, I'm like, yeah, if I wanted to farm, I'd just go farming.
I quite like Agricola, but I
Yeah.
prefer Caverna, which is the sequel to it, and that does have a little bit of combat. That does have you sending dwarves off on adventures, but it's still mostly about making a farm.
I really think they should make a new edition of Agricola that's called Agricola Bad Neighbors, and you should be able to, instead of building on a turn, you should be able to break stuff that your neighbor has. I think it'd be a way more fun game for me.
Oh man, yeah, it's amazing though that that some people don't. I know a few people that don't like Agricola, that just don't like it, and I really do kind of like it, just the way that it works. I mean,
there are other games like that I really did enjoy. Like I really did enjoy Catan. I did really enjoy some of these other ones. But Agricola, I feel like it's so far removed from actually playing with somebody, because they've got their board, you've got your board, and there's no real interaction there. So.
And that's me.
Yeah.
That's me as well. I'm a big fan of games where that is the case.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's engine builders like that. That's my thing. Engine building an engine. I really enjoy it. I do like war games, really enjoy war games, but I really enjoy building an engine where there's my daughter. Nobody is, messing with you. You're just building your little engine, and you're trying to build it better than the other people, faster than the other people. That's kind of a mechanic that I do enjoy. But I can understand why people don't. Some people, it can be a lonely affair, a boring affair, just sitting doing their own board while everybody else is sat around the table doing the same thing. And it kind of takes some of the socialization out of it as well, because you kind of sat there not talking to each other.
Right. And I like stuff where you're engaging and you're politicking and you're fighting. Like, I love stuff like, Shadows over Camelot and stuff like this, because, somebody's doing something to everybody, this type of thing I like. But, that's why there's so many games in the world, is there's personal preference, and, that's what makes the world go round. But I'm definitely a war gamer. I want to break your stuff.
Why is it that you make games? What drives you to make games?
Well, I started making games just because of boredom. I was living in Nepal. I had been living there for 5 years, we had this mound of board games, and we were just sitting around and we were pretty bored. So we were like, well, let's make our own game. And so we started doing that, and it was like me and three other guys came together and we started building board games. So that's how we started.
That's fascinating as well. So I take it that there's not in Nepal, I don't know much about Nepal, but it's not a big media place. It's not somewhere where you have access to televisions or the internet as much as you would in like one of our Western countries.
Well, what happens is there's load shedding and there's power outages and there's stuff where you just don't have access to power all the time, and so I had not brought my Xbox or anything, so I was just over there and I had brought some board games, and then I kept meeting people and they had board games, and so then we just started playing board games and made a board game group over in Nepal. So it's pretty cool.
It worked out very fortuitous then, didn't it? Yeah, ended up now where
Yeah,
you're making a game.
I actually I met my wife, married my wife in Nepal, and came back here. But I lived there for 5 years. So yeah, that's how things
Has
go sometimes.
has the state of the world at present affected how you're designing your games?
No, I don't think so. Because for me, games are just kind of an escape anyway. And so it just comes out to whatever I want to present. And like I said, I'm typically a war gamer, but I'm working on some other stuff that are like exploring games and stuff like this. But it's mainly like it's just an escape for me. I don't want to watch the news because the news is depressing. I don't
And
want
not
to.
always true.
So I've kind of disconnected totally from news. I'm just like, yeah, I can't handle this. I'm gonna lose my mind if I keep watching, so much depressing stuff. So I don't think the state of the world has really affected me because I'm like, I'm just gonna do what I want to do. I'm gonna make the types of things that I think people would enjoy, you know,
What is it
which will
that
be
you
war.
Yeah, war. What is it that you're working on right now?
Right now, I have a pirate board game. It is a worker placement war strategy game with pirate theme. So basically, you'll take your workers, you'll place them on the things you want. I want wood, I want metal, I want these types of things, and you'll build the buildings that you want. And each building has a function. Some buildings will allow you to make more workers. Some buildings will allow you to make pirates. The pirates you can attack with, or you can protect your ships with. Um, Once you start building like this, there's many different routes you can go in there, and so there's just a lot of variation in it. That's a lot of fun. People have been enjoying it.
What would be one piece of advice that you would give to another new designer coming into this, starting out with an idea in their head? What would you tell that designer going forwards?
Well, I would just say keep moving and don't get discouraged. This thing was about a 2 year process for me off and on. And I've gone through many editions of this to get to where I am now. I've had my original edition of this game was like 5 hours long. And then we cut it and then it was 4 hours long. And then we cut it and it was like 3 hours long. And there were systems in the game that just weren't functioning. And that was kind of frustrating. So basically what I would say to new board game designers is don't quit, just keep pushing through. Your family, your friends will get bored of playing your game 10,000 times, but if it's something you're passionate about and if it's something you want to bring to the world, then just keep moving forward. And eventually you're going to get to a place where it's a workable, playable thing. And maybe you can bring it to market. If not, there's just a great deal of fun to be had with making a game as well. Even if it never goes to market, it's a lot of fun to build.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for coming and speaking to me today, Chris.
Thank you, man. I had a lot of fun, and I'll see you later, man.